What's up you guys, it's Sir Scrub here bringing you some more Scrub Tier Yu-Gi-Oh! In today's video I'm going to give you some tips on how to beat True Draco. Before we get into it, if you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Also share this video with a friend. With all that junk out of the way, let's get into this deck. Alright, so as much as I hate to do it, today we're going to look at how to stop True Draco. Just to give you guys some backstory on this deck, this is one of my favorite decks of all time. Draco is a surprisingly versatile deck if you look past the atypical stun deck, and I love its ability to experiment and find different ways to run what looks like to be a fairly linear deck. That being said, I picked it up all the way back in Zodiac format when it was either play Zoo or play Draco. I didn't feel like playing Zoo, so Masterpiece Turbo was the deck to play. With no other exposition needed, let's get into the strengths of this deck. Alright, so for the purpose of this video, I'm going to analyze the strengths of the most popular variant, that being the stun variant. Now this deck has many strengths going for it to make it a very viable stun deck. Firstly, all of the True Draco monsters are relatively large, ranging in attack values of anywhere from 2100 to 3000. And with Diagram on the field, all of them get a 300 attack boost, which doesn't sound like much at first, but it is actually surprisingly helpful. Now the biggest issue with the stun variant of this deck is it struggles to go second, especially against decks that can create a good amount of disruption or Gumblar decks. So when you do win the die roll and get to go first, what makes Draco so good? Well, first is its ability to abuse absolutely busted generic draw power. This deck can run 3 copies of both Card of Demise and Pot of Duality with little to no issue. This deck's ability to draw 4 free cards without even getting into the archetypal engine can make the deck quite powerful. Now the things you want to be drawing into when playing Draco Stun are your floodgates. Most often you'll see this deck main decking floodgates like the Monarchs Erupt, Imperial Order, Rivalry of Warlords, and more. And this is the win con of the stun deck. Draw into these powerful floodgates and make it very difficult, if not impossible, for the opponent to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Now the degeneracy of floodgates is a topic for another video, however this deck can play a wide variety due to the deck's inherent synergy. All of the Dracos are worm type monsters, making Rivalry of Warlords almost an instant staple. They're also all tribute monsters and typically don't need an extra deck, therefore making the Monarchs Erupt also a staple. This card in particular is particularly nasty since it's basically a one-sided skill drain in the context of the Draco match. Also, they can play Imperial Order with ease, turning off spell cards whenever necessary, and whenever they need to, they can simply tribute it off to turn their spell cards back on. And this isn't even getting into the deck's inherent engine. Draconic Diagram lets a Draco player search their entire archetype at the quote-unquote cost of destroying a card. It's also very easy for a Draco deck to turn this cost into a plus. The Draco monsters themselves also provide more consistency. Ignis Heat searches all of the True Draco spell cards whenever the opponent activates a card or effect. Dynamite Knight, the True Draco fighter, does the same for the traps, and Majesty Maiden searches the other monsters. These are the most typically run Draco monsters, though be aware if they choose to run Metaltron 12, he can be a 3k beater that's immune to all card effects, and if they run Draeith, he can protect all of the other Dracos from targeting. Now the next card is not a True Draco monster, though it might as well be. This deck can also utilize a Mono Iwado to the fullest to protect itself from hand traps when going first, because they don't really need their Draco effects when they go first. Those effects are mainly used to react to the opponent. Finally, we have the bread and butter of this deck, the back row. Disciples allows the True Draco deck to reset its resources by adding 3 True Draco cards from the graveyard into the deck and drawing a new card, making it a plus anytime it's live. Heritage can also be an insane plus when a Draco player gets their engine going, making it to where they can potentially draw another 3 cards every turn. Combine this with the generic draw power of the deck, and this deck has a surprising amount of speed and consistency. Finally, the True Draco trap cards provide disruption as well as some last moment ass saving. Apocalypse allows a Draco player to destroy any other Draco card on their field to permanently half the stats of all of the opponent's monsters. And of course, True King's Return allows them to special summon any of their Draco monsters from the grave in defense mode. And for those that don't know yet, True Draco monsters can be tribute summons by tributing any of their back row for their tribute summons. And when any of the back row goes to the grave, they can destroy certain cards. The spells destroy other back row, and traps can pop monsters. This gives the deck some inherent disruption. The traps have an effect to tribute summons during the opponent's turn, giving them access to spell speed 2 disruption. So now that we've analyzed the deck's strengths, let's move into some ways to combat the deck when you get to go first. Alright, so this deck has some great strengths, but let's look at some ways to slow them down, and in some instances stop them completely. The biggest and best floodgate to put up and shut down Draco is Mask of Restrict. This card makes it to where while it is face up on the field, cards can't be tributed. Notice the wording there, it says cards can't be tributed, which prevents the Draco player from tributing their back row for their tribute summons, or using the Monarch Stormforce to tribute off your monsters. Next, Mistake can be one difficult wall for true Draco players to deal with. Now this particular floodgate isn't for every deck. However, if you go first and make your board and then add Mistake on top of it, it can be a powerful tool to stop Draco, preventing them from searching completely, turning off their diagram and their Draco monster effects. Another useful floodgate would be Unending Nightmare. This card's ability to disrupt the Draco deck's back row is powerful. Be aware that the spell cards can destroy this card if you choose to destroy them. However, it can be chained to diagram to make its effect fizzle, or chained to any of the back row the spell card effects to make their effects fizzle as well. And the last floodgate that I want to bring up is Macrocosmos. Now this card is absolutely not for every deck. However, if your deck can suffer playing this card, it can be a damn near blowout against this deck. This card instantly turns off the Draco's deck's ability to grind, as well as to generate pluses off of Heritage. And it also stops them from being able to destroy your cards, since the back row states they must go to the grave to get their pops. And see, that's the key to defeating this deck, is disrupting its back row. Due to Draco's ability to tribute its back row instead of monsters, very few actually run low-level monsters other than hand traps, so things like Twin Twister and Cosmic Cyclone and things of the like can be a powerful card. Cosmic Cyclone in and of itself in this matchup is powerful, giving you the ability to banish their back row, which keeps them from being able to grind off of it. Now, let's move into looking at the deck when you go second. So when going second, this deck isn't weak to many hand traps. However, the ones it is weak to can be devastating. It cannot be overstated how much of a turn skip Droll and Lockbird is. As soon as they terraforming for a diagram, drop Droll and their turn is over. No Pot of Duality, no Card of Demise, no searching. Boom, it's a straight up turn skip. Of course, that being said, Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring is another good choice. Ashing the Card of Demise can be a power play. Also, dropping Ash on Heritage when they've got it loaded up for massive pluses is also a good way of using. Now, neither of those cards are exactly budget. However, in the grand scheme of things, Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit is also a powerful hand trap against this deck that isn't going to hurt your bank as much. This card can basically negate any of the back row or Dragonic Diagram, so if it's dropped at the correct time, this card can end their turn. Another good card to help you combat this deck is Evenly Matched. At the cost of your battle phase, this card can simply banish all of those powerful floodgates they've got set. Also, summoning Denko Sekka can be a great way of going second against this deck, though I wouldn't rely on Denko Sekka as much because they can just flip their floodgates during your standby phase before she hits the field. Out of all of these, I would heavily suggest Droll and Lockbird and Evenly Match more than the others, though you do have to be careful relying on hand traps against this deck due to Amano Iwado. Alright you guys, that's all I've got for this one. This deck's real straightforward, real easy if you know what you're doing. If you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, don't forget to share this video with a friend. And just to let you guys know, I do have all of my other social platforms down in the description below. Let me know what deck you'd like to hear some tips on down in the comment section as well. But most importantly, don't forget,